I am a 64-year-old male who does not have prostate cancer. Maybe. Let's discuss. First, let's make this clear that this is simply a story of a journey one dude is going through. It's not meant to be medical advice, but if you find yourself in a similar situation, this might be instructional, especially when it comes to mistakes I made that made my journey a bit more painful than it should have been. But first, the tale of the tape. I am a man in his 60s. I have a family history of prostate cancer. My father had his prostate removed several decades ago. I have a history of rising PSA readings. We'll touch on this more in a minute. And a prostate that has grown significantly with all the outstanding benefits of benign prostatic hyperplasia, known as BHP. So overall, to be honest, that's a pretty pessimistic picture, and my primary care physician agreed. She referred me to a urologist. That led to more intense scrutiny of my prostate, Moon River, as well as monitoring those PSA readings. That's a blood test that stands for prostate-specific antigen. It's a good indicator if your prostate is growing. Not so great about prostate cancer, but it is an early detection tool. But with all those factors put together, my urologist ordered up a 12-point biopsy of my prostate. But first, I'd be sent off for an MRI so technicians could scan my favorite gland, then inject me with some dye, scan it again. The goal being to give the folks doing the biopsy suspicious areas of my prostate to target when they do their deed. So in I went to undergo the 20 to 30 minute procedure that felt more like 2 hours. And after a couple of days, the results were in. They found no suspicious areas. So even though the MRI was clear, the biopsy was still on. And let me tell you, I think the prep for that thing is worse than a colonoscopy. It involved 2 self-administered enemas. And I think that's all I want to say about that.
That's enough. Just pipe better.
All right, so in I went. I got gowned up. Of course, I was knocked out. And then the wait for the results was on. A few days later, they came back. 12-point biopsy found no cancer. However, 4 of the samples they found were irregular, abnormal, suspicious, something called atypical small acinar proliferation, otherwise known as ASAP, which means the cells are a bit abnormal, but not necessarily cancerous. So if you really want to go down the research rabbit hole, try to figure out if an ASAP result means that you may have cancer or will soon get a prostate cancer diagnosis in 5, 10, or 15 years. Honestly, a betting app should put odds on it somewhere because I'd put something down. All right then, what's next? Well, after another physical, my PSA results spiked. They went way up, so the urologist ordered another 12-point biopsy. I went in, gowned up, had it done. The results came back. Again, no cancer, but 3 of the 12 samples had that ASAP finding. So what happened to me? Why did my PSA results suddenly spike up? Well, it turns out I had had a physical and scheduled a blood draw only a day or 2 after I had had a colonoscopy. And I later learned that was a big no-no. Several factors can cause your PSA readings to spike. They include infections in the area, sexual activity, or manipulation or medical procedures in that area, which is what I had, or vigorous exercise that includes cycling that puts a lot of pressure in that area. All that can cause an unnaturally high PSA reading. So subsequent PSA test I had after that fell back more into line, still slightly elevated, but not nearly as high as it was the prior test. The doctor said, given the impressive size of my prostate, we will continue to monitor that and other factors before determining any future action. I was also advised to lose some weight to better deal with the effects of BHP. All right, so what are we to make of all this, besides the fact that I need to lose some weight? Well, first of all, PSA readings. Listen, they're a good indication that something may be going on with your prostate, but that something may not necessarily be cancerous. Secondly, if you're going to give blood that results in a PSA test, please don't do so after you've had an infection in that area, a lot of sexual relations, manipulations, or medical tests in that area, like I did, or do a lot of vigorous exercises, especially cycling, that puts pressure in that area as well. Wait a while until you give that blood. Finally, if you haven't done so already and you're a man in your 50s, get that PSA test done. Get that baseline reading on record. The more points you have, the more data you have, will be better off for you in the long run. If you haven't done it already, do it ASAP.